Hello and welcome back to Angular 2 Masterclass with Alejandro Rangel. In this video, we will talk about the Angular 2 library HTTP. This library allows the communication between the client and the server. So up to this point, we were not communicating to the server at all or getting data, but in the reality, most of our applications will need to retrieve data and send data to a server. So in the case of the Angular HTTP library for Angular 2, they decided to go for RxJS library and use the observables. We talked about this library in previous videos, so in case you haven't seen it, it's a good moment to watch it. It's worth to mention also that the Angular HTTP library is totally independent from the Angular core. So if we want to use HTTP, there is a really important step, that is we have to put in our index the reference to our HTTP library. So when I have been doing examples of this, most of the time I have forgot this, and the debugging is a mess because I'm putting the providers and I'm writing the code for the HTTP, and it won't work until you import the libraries. So how do you do that? Okay, basically in the index.html, you have to write a typical script for getting a JavaScript, and it will look something like this depending on where is hosted your HTTP Angular files. But just remember to import the HTTP, okay? Okay, the next step to make the communication between client and server using HTTP is basically we have to import the HTTP providers. These are the services that this library offers. And at this point, it's worth to mention that the main.ts, we have talked about this really very few, okay, but at some point I said that this is the file for bootstrapping Angular 2. So as Angular 2 HTTP, it's an external library, we should pass this as a parameter in the array of providers. So this is new syntax. If you take a look in the last line of this slide, you will see that we have the app component. This is the application that we are creating, and next to it, we are passing an array with external providers. So we are saying, okay, we want to use Angular with HTTP providers, and well, for this example, we want to use the router providers too, okay? So this is the second step for using HTTP library. Yeah, that's what I said. Okay, so this is an example of how we should create a service that makes an HTTP call to a server. Okay, if we take a look here, we can see that we are importing the observable from the RxJS library. Okay, also we have the HTTP from the HTTP library, and most important, okay, remember to inject the HTTP library. Okay, this is an external dependency, and we'll take care of creating an instance for you, and then we are ready to go. We can start using the HTTP libraries and make GET requests, POST requests, and so on. Yep. In this example, we can see that we are using the map function from RxJS. So our response, we are mapping into a JSON response. This is super important. We were not. Oh, sorry about my English. It's really late. In Angular 1, for example, we were not using the JSON. Okay. This conversion, but in Angular 2 is mandatory to take the response that we get from HTTP, and then we just parse the JSON. Okay, so you will see these lines many times in Angular 2. And finally, we subscribe to the result of this HTTP request, and we just said, okay, observable next. This is just a trigger to tell all the observers that we have finished with this and they are ready to consume and use this information. Okay.